Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick hurling podcast with your host Mark Kennedy, joined again this week by Ruairi Walsh and Kieran Collins. We're delighted to have on Simon Stokes, and an absolute pleasure and privilege to have Kieran Fraggy Murphy from the Sarsfields Club with us as well. Lads, how are things?
There you go, Mark.
Great, Mark. All good, no? Thank you.
Great. Kieran, great to have you on. I suppose been busy down in Sarsfields the last week anyway. Great hype down in Sarsfields for the final.
Oh yeah, it's great buzz. Obviously Pat's the manager. Would have played with him in Sars, great Sars man. Jack O'Connor is on the panel. Colin McCarthy is kind of on the extended panel, got an injury this year, and Paul O'Sullivan then is in the backroom team with Pat Ryan's kind of right hand man, the quiet man in the background. So we've a great great buzz kind of this week with all the lads involved in the All Ireland final, and the place is electric down here. The amount of flags and signs that are up around Glanmire is incredible, and it just goes to show the hunger and appetite that's there for Cork hurling, and especially Cork hurling doing well, which we haven't been the last number of years. So great excitement, and hunt for tickets is phenomenal. It really is. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like it, and there's a lot of wheeling and dealing going on down here, but it's brilliant, and it just adds to the whole atmosphere of the occasion.
I suppose, guys, look, we're all on for one reason, and that's to talk about the All Ireland Senior Hurling Championship final between Clare and Cork. I suppose, guys, we'll look at the pathways to the final for both sides, look at the highs and lows for both counties during the campaign, and also look at some of the key players and maybe get a prediction or two from you come the end. But I suppose, Kieran, starting from yourself, thoughts on the Munster campaign for Cork?
Yeah, I suppose we probably have to kind of thank Waterford and Tipperary a small bit. It was looking dodgy there. We went down to Walsh Park, and I suppose when you look at the team that played and started against Waterford and the team that's playing now, it's completely different. 6 changes after the day down in Walsh Park. Cork were disappointing on the day. Would have put a lot of emphasis on it and just didn't perform. Waterford probably beat them tactically and physically all over the pitch. The management were brave, made 6 changes, and the performance levels really increased, but came up short against Clare. And to be honest, there was a lot of depression walking out of the park that day against Clare, even though it was a great game and Cork had played well, but it really looked like that we were probably going out at that stage. And a few minutes into injury time down in Walsh Park the following week with Tip and Waterford, it looked like we were going to be out, but Tip got the goal and brought it back level. And then I remember sitting up in the stand in Thurles, we had heard that it was gone for a 65 in Ennis, and nobody could find out what the outcome was. And next, all of a sudden, there was a roar in the town end terrace. The place went absolutely berserk. It was phenomenal to kind of be there, and everyone was scrambling to kind of see if it was accurate, the reports. And eventually, there was a steward turned around. And he said, "Yeah, Clare were after beating Waterford," and then it was kind of up to Cork then to do the business and pulled out a great performance against Tipperary. And I suppose that was the kind of question that day, off the back of a great game against Limerick and turning Limerick over in our home patch in a special occasion down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Could we back it up in Thurles? And the lads they really tore Tip away that day. So what started off as a poor campaign in the first 2 games, the momentum that was generated by that Shane Kingston run and the Patrick Horgan penalty at the end of the Limerick game, the pitch invasion, which got a lot of kind of media coverage and people giving out about it, but it was just an outpouring of emotion and excitement. That night it was brilliant. I was there with my kids out in the pitch afterwards, and it was fantastic. And they've carried that momentum through. Last year they lost out on qualifying from Munster by a point. This year they got through in that coveted kind of 3rd place. That's all really you wanted from Cork this year, was kind of get out of Munster and give yourself an opportunity to get to Croke Park this time of the year. And thankfully, a bit of luck, we got it this year.
Great stuff. Kieran, Simon, your thoughts here in terms of the Munster campaign first for Cork?
Yeah, I think Pat Ryan said in the press, on one of the build-ups to the Munster Championship, he said that he'd bite your hand off coming third in Munster. And some people were kind of saying that was a kind of defeatist attitude. But after the first 2 games, I think we all would have bitten someone's hand up for the third place. It was very disappointing the first day, but as Kieran said, there was a lot of changes, even tactical changes and positional changes and personnel changes going from the first day against Waterford into the second day against Clare. Look, the day against Clare, they were up there 7 or 8 points, and I know there was a lot of talk about the referee and the decision made on that occasion, but Clare had clawed that lead back down to a point or 2 by the time the man was sent off, which I think, look, it was a stupid tackle to make on a yellow card. So possibly the last goal or the goal finishing up in that game took the glass a small bit off of Clare's win. I think Clare were good value for their win that day, and we thought it was all over at that stage. As Kieran said, the game against Limerick was just a special occasion up in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Jeez, I got a fair kick out of last Sunday, but I got a deadly kick out of the match up in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Gave us a chance. I think Seamus Hickey said in commentary that night. I can't think exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of an awful lot of the country could rue the fact that Limerick aren't after putting the sword in here with Cork tonight. He's after being proven correct. The game against Tipton. Look, the first half was tight enough against Tip. Sure, look, it was probably the Connolly show after that. And look, we'd gone through the motions. Well, I won't say gone through the motions, but the game against Offaly in Dublin, boxes ticked, probably a little bit before or below form. And thank God they got through Limerick the weekend before last. So it's all systems going out for Sunday. And please God, we'll come up on the right side of the results.
Absolutely. Ruairi, Kieran, get you in there. What stood out for you this Cork campaign, particularly in Munster? Ruairi, you'll start with yourself first.
Yeah, look, it kind of swung, I suppose, in the Clare match, and that was the first. The performance level was raised considerably from the Waterford match, and even against Clare, they still fought to the end. When they were down a man, and suddenly at one stage Clare had put the lead out to 6 points, 7 points, and it looked like it was just going to be one way, but Cork got it back and had a shot near the end that I think hit Mark Rogers of all people back near the goal line. And, so in a way, Clare were lucky to escape, even though, as Simon said, there was stages where, it looked like Clare had the game won, but in true Clare fashion, left Cork in there with a chance. But I think Cork had confidence coming out from that night. And even Pat Ryan himself, even though they lost, he felt like that he got the response from the team he'd wanted in terms of performance. And yeah, they really brought it to Limerick with the long ball puck outs and the pace in the half forward line. Really exposed, maybe lack of pace in Limerick half back line that day. Yeah, I was actually down at the game myself in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and that win gave them that chance then. And I know they were relying on other results, but at least they were in there with a chance after beating Limerick. And the Cork's record against Limerick in previous years, apart from the game in the Gaelic grounds, there has been a gap between the teams, and this was, it was a huge win for Cork, and it just kind of gave them the belief then, I suppose, from that every game they played, if you can beat Limerick, you can beat anyone, is the belief, and they brought that forward. And just at the semi-final was just an incredible game of hurling, and just the accuracy from both teams, Cork forwards in particular, just a tremendous game. And as some people say, probably fit to be a final, felt like a final with the sellout and the whole lot. But yeah, look, it's building up nicely now for Sunday as well. It's just, I suppose you don't have, with all respect to Limerick and Kilkenny, it's just nice to have two different teams in the final as well, and gives a bit of hype, I suppose, elsewhere in the country as well. So yeah, it all makes for an interesting one Sunday.
The round robin as a whole, isn't it a great advertisement for hurling, the ups and downs, and even for Cork, the huge defining moments in it, losing to Waterford first game, 3 different occasions they could have been knocked out, I suppose, had Waterford held on against Tipperary in Walsh Park, had that 65 not been given to Clare, and I suppose, had Kingston not made that run and won the penalty, there was 3 occasions where they could have been knocked out. Maybe strokes of luck in some way, but at that stage, Cork were on the up. I think from that game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, I think that was a statement of intent. I think Kieran, you mentioned earlier, the management were brave. After that Waterford game, they could have folded completely. It could have been just started, to go on, but they made the changes. Some small positional changes, but they were a different team from that first game against Waterford to now. I've been really, really impressed with them. Look, to have that, I suppose, that the mix of youth and a couple of the elder statesmen there too to guide them along, and Pat Horgan, he's one of these generational players, and I suppose no one deserves to win in All Ireland, but I think at this stage he does. He's been there so long, and he's been such a servant for Cork hurling, and like they're not handed to you. But if he does win one, I think definitely there'll be no one of any other county will have a complaint that Pat Horgan has an All Ireland medal. But I think this weekend it's going to be rip roaring, and I agree with Rory there. It's good to see different counties in it. Like I suppose it's we've had amazing time in Limerick the last 6-7 years. Like I grew up, I've said this before, thinking I'd never see Limerick win one All Ireland, so not to mind winning 4 in a row. So, but just I suppose what I've experienced, like, and I suppose there's young people in Cork, kids who've they haven't seen this, like, and so for them to experience the big day and Clare as well, like, I suppose a county that's not bowled over with success. So for just for the kids and the younger people, like it's a wonderful day, like, and it's great. And even with compare that to the football as well, like there's 2 new counties, like it's great to see it being shared around.
Yeah, Kieran, get you in there. I mean, I think Kieran kind of mentioned it there. Brave management from Pat Ryan, particularly after the Waterford game. I suppose who stood out for you in the Cork jersey this year particularly? I know the units have really galvanised in the last few weeks, but who's been the out-and-out player for you this season for Cork so far?
I suppose the big thing, the big criticism in Cork the last kind of number of years, even back to when I was playing, was about kind of ball winning ability and winning the long puck outs. And it's amazing. I think Simon mentioned it there a while ago about a kind of a change in personnel, but it also kind of a change in tactics as well too, and the kind of long puck out. And it's that physicality in the full forward line that Connolly and even Brian Hayes, while he's not an overly physical player or anything, it's his height is a fierce advantage under the puck outs because it's hard to win ball off him. The 2 of those have really stood out. Probably Brian Hayes the last couple of days, but for me it's Alan Connolly, and it's that focal point at the edge of the square just to take that pressure off Patrick. There's been so much pressure on Patrick for a number of years in terms of get the ball into him and he'll get the scores. And in fairness to him, more often than not, he has delivered for Cork. But Connolly's added an extra dimension. And what I really like about him, in a couple of games where he's had limited ball, he's actually, he's really made the kind of 3 or 4 balls that he's won really effective. And he's really good at getting the ball into his hand, turning quickly, straight, and going for goal. Like if you think of the kind of disallowed goal the last day in the semi-final against Limerick, he picked the ball so quickly, like on the turn, went straight, was held up, and laid the ball off to Brian Hayes, but the goal was kind of called back. And you think the goal he got against Tipperary in Thurles, it's that physicality in the full forward line and that focal point of, look, we're under pressure out the field, just get it into him and he'll compete and he'll hold it up. And if you've Patrick, Shane Barrett coming off, running at speed, he is good to kind of lay it off to him, and they've really worked well. Shane Barrett has been excellent as well too, to be fair to him. Like, I mean, he was brilliant last year in the club championship for Blarney when Mark Holman was injured for the most of the year, and he kind of carried Blarney, and he's carried that form into the inter-county season, and he has been exceptional with his movement. Like, it's his positioning at centre forward has really worked out well, and you're looking at it in terms of Declan Hannon the last day under pressure to stay with him. John Conlon will probably be picking him up the next day. It'll be such a great matchup. But that centre forward, full forward position, which has been a kind of an issue for us for a number of years, those lads have really solidified it there and made those positions their own. And for me, those 2 have had a major impact this year for Cork.
Yeah, Simon, got you in there. Who stood out for you for Cork this year?
Just on Kieran's point there about the puck outs, I think I read somewhere before the Limerick game that if you take the first 2 championship games out of it, that the Patrick Collins completion rate from the puck outs is the best in the game. It's really, like, tactically things have just gone through the roof since the Clare loss. Look, I think it's hard to kind of, analyse Cork this year without, saying about Darragh Fitzgibbon. He's been phenomenal for the year this year. I think I'm fairly sure he's Cork's, well, he might be giant Cork's top scorer from play. And for a midfielder doing that against some of the best midfields in the game, he's had an absolutely phenomenal year. Like what Kieran was saying there, Connolly's having a fantastic season. Probably a bit below himself in the first 2 games outside of Munster, but apparently there was a virus going through the camp and that could have caught him there. Like, he was definitely back to form. He got 3 points there against Limerick the last day. But my standout player would be Shane Barrett, though. I think, the first day he was inside corner forward against Waterford. He survived that cull when, the 5 or 6 players were dropped, and he's made centre forward his own. He doesn't appear to be an overly big man, but he's giving, the likes of Hannon, he's giving him fits. He's a desperate bad matchup for Hannon. Conlon, I suppose we were talking about the final shortly, but I think Clare will have to just pull everyone back and try and make it as condensed as possible back there from the puckouts. Because if they leave Conlon a one-on-one with Barrett, I think there could be goals there for Cork coming off of that. Which are my 2 main men for Cork, Darragh Fitzgibbon and Shane Barrett. Yeah,
Rory, Kieran Collins got you in there. I suppose anyone else standing out for you in this Cork side of the season? Rory, start with yourself.
Yeah, for me, it's just a small one. It's Robert Downey's position at centre back now has kind of shored up that spot for me, because even against Clare, Clare were able to, get running through the half back line. Joyce, I think, wants to do too much hurling for a 6. He's flying forward, and whereas Robert Downey is, I know he still gets forward for the odd score. He knows when time he's run a bit like Declan Hannon, but he's kind of just brought a bit of solidity there. And if you were told with the way Cork started the Munster Championship that they'd play Limerick in a semi-final and not concede a goal, before the championship started with the way, or actually after the championship started with the way Cork were conceding goals left, right and centre, that it's just kind of, I think it's given them a solid platform there at the back, and with his brother behind them as well. I know it's a small thing, but you've Collins, Owen Downey, Robert Downey, and they're pretty solid out now, having the 2 brothers in front of him, and both of them very good in the air as well. But I think he's sitting deeper than Joyce did, and it's kind of, they're getting less turned the half back line because of that. Then the 2 wing backs can kind of attack the ball, knowing that Robert Downey will be sweeping in around behind, which probably wasn't the case earlier in the championship. So for me, even though he's not getting the credit as the swashbuckling forwards above, and Harnedy as well, I'd say he's having a great year this year too. Had a huge game against Limerick in the semi-final, but yeah, for me, just that little switch has kind of changed things around for Cork.
I think you can pick him off every line. To be fair, I agree with what the lads have said there. Connolly's been unreal, such a with the 2 hat-tricks, and scoring goals for fun. Barrett as well. I think he's really, the last couple of games has really kicked on to show he's real worth. We need the likes of Robbie O'Flynn on the bench, it just shows, I suppose, how that forward 6 are going, and how strong they are. I think for me, the player who probably came into the season with the most criticism on last year was probably Patrick Collins. I think he's turned it around and answered a lot of critics over the last couple of games. A couple of frees that were highlighted in the semi-final against Limerick, but just I suppose the puck outs as well. And I think the whole Cork's transformation on puck outs, I suppose we saw a lot of experimentation in the league. I suppose sitting 10 lads back inside the 45, and I suppose a lot of time it didn't work, but I think they have got it right, and I think Collins has been instrumental to that. And there was a lot of calls for at the start of the year, especially to give Brian Salterson a go, but I think definitely he's fully stamping on that jersey. And look, there's been guys at every line that you could pick out, but I agree, Barrett, Fitzgibbon, they've been instrumental, and I think, as Rory said, Rob Downey going centre back seems to has it's been the chess move that has probably solved those question marks on Cork's backline, I suppose, with the goals. But I think that one move has definitely solidified that back unit. So definitely, the recalls that were made all during the year, and I suppose they've all paid off.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, even Declan Dalton for me in the last few weeks has just been absolutely exceptional for Cork. The way that he kind of negated Kyle Hayes out of that All Ireland semi-final, I think it was a wonderful display from Declan Dalton. I suppose, guys, we can move over to the other side. And Rory, being proud 6 Mile Bridge man that there are there in the final. I mean, first appearance since 2013, obviously. I suppose what stood out for you in this championship campaign? I mean, started with the home loss to Limerick, behind the 8 ball a little bit, but it has grown in momentum. No, there was a Munster final loss, but your general thoughts in terms of Clare campaign so far?
Yeah, and it's one way, it's a strange campaign in that they've struggled to catch fire for a total game. I thought in patches down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh against Cork, that was probably in patches our best performances. At times we had 2 or 3 spells there, 10-minute spells where we hurled really well. Second half against Kilkenny, of course. But again, we were so poor in the first half that would be a worry. You can't go into the way Cork are playing at the minute into a final and play like that. But overall, they're getting the job done. It's a sign of an experienced team, I suppose, to win when you're not at your best. And if you think back, I suppose, including the league final, Clare have had 8 big games now, and they've won 6 of them. And the only 2 they've lost were, the 2 games against Limerick, who are 4 times All Ireland champion, so it's still a good record to have. And sometimes it's not so bad to go into a final like having maybe the spotlight off you a bit based on, maybe not catching fire in some of the big guys as well, that over the years have been pretty consistent, or, a bit inconsistent this year for Clare. But just in the second half that day, I thought it was the best I'd seen our half back line, Diarmuid Ryan and Dave McNerney especially. John Conlon, who had started very poorly against Kilkenny, finished very strong in the game as well. Just looking with Cork's half forward, like, we need that half back line at their very best to have a chance on Sunday. So that's kind of promising signs. But I suppose overall around Robin in Munster, like after they lost to Limerick at home, like you'd say again, like it was odds against Clare with 2 away games to come and a resurgent Waterford with Davy kind of mad to get a win up in Cusack Park. But in fairness to them, like, as I said, without playing well, they dogged it out, got to Munster final. I suppose that was the biggest disappointment, was their underperformance in the Munster final. But look, they responded well against Wexford, and I suppose if you're looking for a bit of momentum and stuff out of it, like finishing so strong against Kilkenny in the second half, does give Clare a bit of momentum going into the final. Yeah, so look, you're hoping that the one big performance is the one yet to come. In fairness to Lohan and the management team, there was a lot of question marks over them. We were firing a lot of those questions, by the way, so we won't push responsibility there, but they did. I thought it was the best on the line Clare were so far in the championship against Kilkenny. All the calls in terms of selection and substitutes, and it's something as well, like with Pat Ryan being so shrewd for Cork as well at the minute. Like, that's another thing that Clare have to, not lose the head and do something daft on All Ireland final day, and just stick with, what's going well, and, not try to pull too many rabbits out of hats, because generally they'll backfire for you.
Yeah, Kieran Collins, get you in there. I suppose general thoughts on Clare?
I think that's the best way you described it, Rory. They've dogged it through. To me, I think Clare have gone backwards on where they possibly were last year, the year before. They haven't put 70 minutes together, and I think that semi-final win might gloss over a couple of issues. I think Clare did improve in that second half, but Kilkenny, truth be told, did fall away as well. I don't think Kilkenny fired a shot. The one positive I can pick out is Ryan Taylor, the reintroduction of Ryan Taylor. Definitely that second half, like, he made such a difference the last 20 minutes. And getting that 20 minutes under the belt, definitely, like, I suppose the question mark here is, do you start him or do you hold him in reserve? But just the energy he brought, and I think Clare have been missing that all year. Just that link between the backs and forwards. At times I think Clare defensively have been weak. I think generally teams who have run at Clare have got at them. They have give up goals, and that's my worry this weekend is with the Cork team, and that's their game. Is the running game is, if they start piercing holes, will Clare be able to handle it up front? Like, Shane O'Donnell has been immense. He's definitely running for hurler of the year. I get a sense that if Cork can, like Limerick did in the Munster final, I suppose, to stop the ball going into him, you go a lot of the way to negating Clare's attack, because a lot of the good that, I suppose, scores that Clare come up with go through O'Donnell. Look, they're there on merit and fair play. I just think that they haven't been putting the full 70 minutes together for me. And look, if they do put the 70 minutes together, by all means, they've a real fighting chance. But if they turn up and playing, 10 minutes out of any final, and you're gone, especially with Cork. If Cork had a sniff of blood, they're going to take it. And that's the worry for me. It's the Clare backs. I think even you see it in that Wexford game, and look, Clare were by far the better team, but that period where Clare were 7 points up, Wexford get a goal, and within a short period of time, Wexford go 1 up. Now, Rory O'Connor gets sent off, and that's the change in the game, and we'll never know how it would have panned out if he did stay on the field. But it's that, going from being 6-7 up to being 1 down in a short period of time. And I think that's happened for Clare a couple of times this year. So, look, that by all means, they have the personnel, they have the experience, but they do need to put 70 minutes together.
Kieran and Simon, from a Cork lens here, what's standing out for you with this Clare campaign so far? Maybe Kieran, will start with you first.
I suppose if I was a kind of a Clare supporter, I'd almost be kind of saying, would the real Clare stand up for the full 70 minutes? Because they've put 20-25 minutes together where they have looked extremely dangerous and kind of maybe back to their form of last year. And then, they've kind of faded a bit. Like, if I was a Kilkenny person after the semi-final the last day, I'd be nearly saying, how do we lose that game? We should have been 10 points up at half-time with the goal chances that they created. But, like, in fairness to Clare, there seems to be kind of a calmness in the group. I remember watching down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in the second half there when Cork went up maybe 6 or 7 points. I kind of looked around and I didn't really see any panic around the field from the kind of Limerick players, and they just kept tipping away, kept the scores ticking over, and got a couple of goals then, and they went ahead and should have won that game by more in truth down the park. And you have to say, like, to give them great credit, it didn't work out for them in the first half, the last day in the semi-final. And Croke Park is a lonely place when things aren't going right for you, but they were able to get in at half time, reassess, and they just kept going. Like, Kilkenny probably did drop a level, all right, but like that's not Clare's problem. I mean, there was a game there to be won, and considering they had lost the last couple to Kilkenny as well too, it would have been easy for them to say, oh, we got this back, and it was a good performance, but we just fallen short again. But when it was there, they won it, and there does seem to be that kind of calmness within the group. But it's about getting that consistency of performance across the whole 70 minutes. I mean, you look when they played Limerick as well too, up in Ennis this year, being up, and then Limerick kind of coming back. If they put it together, and their forward line is very, very potent. Like, when they needed someone to stand up down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, they put Peter Duggan out, isolated out the wing, pucked the ball down on top of him, and like, Peter has magic hands. I mean, he can put the ball, reach out and grab the ball. He was that day, he was grabbing above Tim O'Mahony, who's no small man by any stretch of the imagination. And when Tim was pulling hard, Peter was just taking the ball down with his hurley and turning and going. Like, he's an absolute genius with the high ball like that. So, like, they have inspirational players, and the one thing that they do really, really well is when they're attacking, they always look for that extra pass if the goal is on. Shane O'Donnell, Mark Rogers, their heads up when they break inside. Is the goal on? If it is, we'll give that 20-30 yard pass right, across the 20. If it's not on, we'll put it over the bar. Like, their forward line is really dangerous, and their movement off the ball is something that's concerning from a Cork perspective going into next day, because it's probably something that our backs have struggled with in certain games. You saw even the last day in the semi-final, I think it was Adam English maybe came on and caught a puck out, and I think it was Tom Morrissey was inside. He'd ghosted inside. He was in 30 yards of space on his own. If it was popped in, there was a fierce goal chance. My sense is, if that happens again the next day, Clare will give that ball, because that's what they do a lot. They do seek out the goals that way, and that's one thing that I'd be kind of concerned about. Certainly their back line. You're looking, obviously John Conlon at centre back. He's a big player for Clare. When he plays well for Clare, they really rally. And the last day in the second half, he played well for Clare. So from that perspective, from a Cork perspective, you're looking to say, right, how can Shane Barrett get off John Conlon, and how can we minimise his impact and drag him around the place? And that battle is going to have a huge deciding outcome of the game on Sunday.
Simon, your thoughts here in terms of this Clare campaign, and who's a threat for you going in on Sunday?
Do you know the one thing I'd say about Clare? Like, you've talked about different intervals in the game and how they can kind of tune in and tune out. I think Clare are very, very slow starters, and that doesn't match up great with Cork, who are come out the tracks very quickly. Like, if Cork had scored the goal chances that they could have scored today against Clare in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, that game could have been done and dusted in early doors. Saying that, like what Kieran is saying there, the thoughts of some of those Clare forwards on, look, the Cork backs have played, very well the last couple of games, but they're still the same Cork backs that have been shredded to pieces on occasions down through the years. So, like, I'd be very worried about Shane O'Donnell. As you mentioned, that Duggan matchup could be a deciding factor in the whole game. Who comes up better than that? I know the Cork team was announced this evening. The way they're lined up now, it's no guarantee it'll be it, but it's probably going to be Joyce down and Duggan, and hopefully he'll have as good a performance as he had in Hegarty in the previous game. But yeah, I like Clare. I think they're very, very good forwards. I have a feeling the Clare backs, some of their defending, I thought was a little bit naive in the first half of the last day. Now, that's not taken away from them, but I just think, even the goal that was scored in the first half of the last day, I just thought that there was an element of closing their eyes and hoping for the best. I think the Cork forwards, particularly the full forward line, might have the beating of them. And I think that Adam Hogan is probably online to get an All-Star this year. I'd be hopeful that matchup might be somewhere where Cork can take them on this week or this weekend. But look, overall, as Kieran was saying there, I think Clare have been more impressive as a whole in previous seasons before this year. But at the same time, they might just be coming right the right time. We'll see how it goes on Sunday.
Ruairi and Kieran Collins get you in here. I suppose the key matchups for Sunday, I suppose, what are the ones from a Clare perspective that need to go right for Lee McCarthy to cross the Shannon to Clare? Ruairi, we'll start with you first.
Yeah, I suppose Cathal Malone will pick up Fitzgibbon midfield. Cathal will be more defensive minded. And if you're starting Ryan Taylor, then that's the question, I suppose. Big one for Lohan. Does he start him? And, bring energy to that middle third from the start, not knowing that Ryan Taylor, will he last a full game? He hasn't played a full game of hurling in over a year. So, only they'll know that from the background of medical team. If he can, if there's no question, even if he can give you 50, 55 minutes, I'd be starting him personally. Just the difference he made, as Kieran Collins said there, the last time when he came in. But in terms of the full backline, I presume Adam Hogan will pick up Patrick Horgan. Conor Cleary will be on Alan Connolly, and that'll leave Conor Lean then on Brian Hayes. Just the one thing Clare probably do, and I get what Simon's saying with the naivety, is they just completely go man for man. And you're hoping then Cathal Malone has a lot of pressure on him to drop back and fill gaps. Cork will know that and try and drag some of the Clare players out of their comfort zone into places they don't want to be. So yeah, I think the full backline matchups are important. Half backline as well, I suppose. You're looking with Shane Barrett, he'll have to be even the day down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, he didn't score that day, but he raced through 2 or 3 times. They could easily be goals the next time, so that is a worry. And it wasn't until the second half really that Clare kind of got the grips with him a bit. Yeah, that is he did it to Limerick, and they'll be targeting same thing against Clare. From the forward line, actually, I'd like to see Clare put Shane O'Donnell back in the edge of the square. I know I was praising Cork for not conceding a goal, but if Gillane held his feet, he could have got 2 or 3 goals the last day. He slipped at the wrong time twice. Another time, I suppose, he should have probably moved his feet as Patrick Collins came out, and he got blocked down. That was very brave from Collins, a great save. But, if he'd had his head up at all, he would have made his sleeping. So I'd be putting O'Donnell in there. I thought O'Donnell caused Owen Downey fierce trouble down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And I wouldn't be making things easy for Cork by, taking him off him. I'd put him in. Also, centre forward is a key one as well, with Rob Downey sitting back and not kind of following. Mark Rogers scored 1-4 from play off Kieran Joyce down there in the matchup down Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So another thing I'd be thinking is David Fitzgerald has been going poor in the wing. I'd maybe put him in as centre forward, something a bit different. You cannot leave him loose because he's such a good strike for a ball from out the field, and maybe he might get on a lot of ball loose. It'd be something a bit different. And if he gets running at Downey, when he picks up pace with the stride of him, he is very hard man to stop. So that could be something Clare might look at, is maybe rather than kind of dropping him, which I'd say Lohan might be thinking about with starting Ryan Taylor, maybe put him in at 11 and just see is there a new lease of life there with him. So yeah, there'd be the things maybe that Lohan will be looking at. But I don't see the only possible change with selection is Ryan Taylor starting. Otherwise it'll be very similar 15 to what started the last day.
Yeah,
and who loses out, Rory? Who loses out if Taylor starts?
Yeah, so I presume, it's a sad thing to say, but it'll probably be David Reedy or David Fitzgerald. If he's going on form, David Fitzgerald, even though we know he has big moments in him. And now David Reedy had a great game against Cork as well, so it's probably one of those two, really. You don't see any of the other 4 forwards losing out there.
That'll be a big call.
Yeah,
I suppose Kieran Collins, put you in there. Your thoughts there on the matchups?
Yeah, I think you look at the two teams, the forward units are just an exceptional, both sides. And I suppose, for Pat Ryan and Brian Lohan this week, it'll be about trying to handle the opposition forwards. And I think the biggest headache for me, for Lohan, will be Conlon trying to manage Shane Barrett, just the pace, I suppose, the runs he make. And I think if you look back to Conlon in the Munster final, where I suppose Limerick managed to get Conlon out of that centre area towards the flanks of it, and it just opened up space. And I think that's something that Cork would be looking to exploit, especially with Barrett. Look, I think the other hand, it's Shane O'Donnell. He has been the main man for Clare this year. I suppose over the last couple of years, the talk has been that Tony Kelly has been the marquee player for Clare, but I think Shane O'Donnell this year has been exceptional. And as I said earlier, everything good has gone through him, and I think that's one area Cork will definitely be looking at this week. Both sides, I think it's going to be a really high scoring game. I think there's the forwards are such good quality on both sides that it'll basically be just who could outscore the other. And I suppose for the neutral, I hope that's the way it is. But will you see a curveball from either team? I suppose it's hard to know. Like, I think Taylor, for me, impressed the last day that it'd be very hard to leave him on the bench because, as Simon said earlier, Cork are, they come out of the traps hard, and the game could be over by half time, and it might be too late for him to make an impact. So for me, I would start him.
Yeah, Kieran, get you in there. I suppose from a Cork perspective, the setup against Limerick was phenomenal. Do you see any changes in the setup here heading into Clare? Do you see any kind of matchups here of potential quality here for Cork to secure Lee McCarthy?
Yeah, I don't necessarily see too many changes, really, to be honest. I suppose the big questions down in Cork, is who's going to pick up Shane O'Donnell, who's going to pick up Mark Rogers. Like, Mark Rogers did wreck the last day down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I think Rory mentioned it there. He got 1-4 from play, and David Fitzgerald is a player that I'd stick with him, to be honest. I think he has a massive game in him, and just his movement off the ball and his running will really question some of the kind of the Cork backs. And I think if Clare are going to have a successful day on Sunday, they need the likes of him playing really well. And like, it's amazing how long we've been talking here today, and Tony Kelly has only just been mentioned. So like, if you have a doubt or a question about the ability of this Clare team, I mean, that'll tell you. We're talking about Mark Rogers, we're talking about Shane O'Donnell, and Tony Kelly is still there. You'd probably say he had a reasonably quiet game the last day, but I think maybe 3 points from play, which is a good return on the scoreboard. So if the questions for Cork are that movement and that running from kind of midfield. I think Rory mentioned about Colin Malone being that defensive midfielder, but he starts off a lot of attacks. He gets a lot of short ball from the full back line from Eibhear Quilligan and just kind of pops it off then to the kind of runners that are moving off. And you think back to even to 2013, it was that running from kind of half back line midfield that really troubled Cork kind of that day as well too. And they're still the same kind of questions that are there when you're playing this Clare team, is can you stop their movement and their running? So who's picking up Mark Rogers? Who's picking up Shane O'Donnell? I'd agree with Rory. You'll definitely see Shane O'Donnell in at the edge of the square on top of Owen Downey. They might start Aidan McCarthy in top of Owen Downey and running to the corners. They got a bit of joy out of that down the park the last day as well too. And if you're Owen Downey, you don't want to be running out into the corners the same as any kind of full back. Clearly up the other side doesn't want to do it either. They want to be standing under the high ball. But I definitely would see Aidan McCarthy kind of going in at the edge of the square too, and probably Clare will probably rotate the likes of Shane O'Donnell, the likes of Aidan McCarthy, Mark Rogers in and out of that half forward line. And the question is, you'll have Rob Downey probably sitting in that centre back position. So what's the protection for him if Clare are getting that short ball to maybe a David Reedy at centre forward or a Rogers? If Rob is sitting there, then who's picking up? Shane O'Donnell going touch tight with him. Niall O'Leary is your kind of man marker. Sean O'Donoghue likes to kind of man mark. So they're really the kind of big questions. And at the other side, then is how do you, I suppose, isolate the likes of Conor Cleary at the edge of the square, and how do you get kind of maybe some crossfield diagonal ball into Brian Hayes, and for him to use his height advantage in inside corner forward as well too. So the matchups are going to be key. There's pressure on management getting the matchup rights going into the All Ireland final, because with the goal scoring threat of both of these teams, if you're off on your matchups, it could cost you dearly.
Absolutely. Simon, looking from a Cork perspective, we've talked about a few players here. Who's an unsung hero here at this Cork side that might be decisive on Sunday for you?
Do you know one unsung hero that I've been noticing that in recent years? Niall O'Leary seems to be doing a great job, and has done a great job in several matches. Do you know, as Kieran was saying there's an awful lot of players in the Cork backs that are technical man markers. But I think now Larry can do a job in any, in the half back line or the full back line. Just going back to your previous questions about matchups, Mark. I think one thing that's not enough has been said about the two goalkeepers, either into the field. I think both of the players, they could easily win the game for you, but I think they both have a glugger in them as well. Quilligan, Jesus, I think Quilligan is getting a desperate amount of praise for balls that are being hit directly at him. And he still has it in him. Every single game he has it in him. I just don't know. I don't know will he get through the game. The same with Collins. Now Collins has improved, and he definitely has come on an awful lot this season. But he has it in him as well. I think the puck out strategy has helped him a little bit with his confidence from the point of view. Say even going back to last season, it wasn't unheard of that he'd puck a ball out over the sideline. But that kind of has taken a little bit of pressure off him now because it seems to be route one. I think the last day was nearly 70% of the puck outs went straight down the middle and long. But I think the two goalkeepers could have a telling say in the outcome next Sunday.
Yeah, Rory, get you in there. Same question to you in terms of an unsung hero that we haven't talked about from the Clare side, who may be a decisive factor here.
I suppose for a debutant, Conor Lean has done very well, and he's definitely shored up the full back line in a way. I know Adam Hogan got all the plaudits the last day, but in the first half, when Clare were in a bit of trouble, I thought Lean was doing quite well in the other corner. He's going to have a huge task. If he wins his battle on Sunday on either one, I presume maybe on Brian Hayes, if he wins that battle, it'll go a long way towards Clare have been in with a great shout, because it's kind of funny from both camps, neither Clare or Cork supporter are fully confident in the back line. We've seen both our back lines being ripped open at times during the year and in previous years. So I presume, as Kieran Collins said, for the neutral, there's an intriguing chance here of a really high scoring All Ireland final. And when they met in Munster this year, and even last year up in Ennis, there was just goal chances galore at both ends. I suppose in terms of confidence as well going in, Clare have beaten Cork 3 times in the spin now in Championship. Even to go down this year and beat them in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and this is 14 of the same Cork team from that day. The only difference is in midfield, Mark Coleman didn't start that day, and he'll be starting. So it's the same. Whereas Clare, you could say, with Ryan Taylor back and Tony Kelly back and Conor Lean, Clare on paper have improved, but then again, Cork's form has improved. So it's apples and oranges in one way. But yeah, I just think that I just from a Clare point of view, I think we can get at Cork backline, and I wouldn't be surprised that Clare have done against Cork in the past is pop Tony Kelly in corner forward, and I've got a bit of joy out of that. Not that he'd be there for the whole game, but he spent a lot of the game up in Cusack Park last year in a corner forward. I think he scored 2-4 from play last year, but no, one was a penalty, 1-4 from play and a penalty as well up in Cusack Park. So he's a guy who has had a joy against Cork in the past. I presume Croke Park hasn't been a happy hunting ground for him of late, and he could do with a big game in Croke Park now, and it would maybe dispel a lot of the doubters there, Jackie Terrell and co, if he does have a big All-Ireland final.
Indeed.
I think one point there, Mark, just on battles, is the free-taking battle, I think, as well, is huge. I think Clare in games have struggled, and not this year, but even over the last couple of years. And Cork, on the other hand, with Horgan, he's so reliable, and if they get frees and get his chance, he will punish Clare. So, I think Clare have struggled in games, and I think they need to get it right. I think there was a stat in the Sunday game showed where the succession rate from free taking was high, they won the games. And it's going to be so crucial this weekend. Where scores are going to be hard to come from.
Guys, we might get to prediction time. Kieran, might start with you first. I mean, obvious question here: who's winning? But I suppose, what's the key underlying factor here for the reason Cork may be winning this on Sunday?
Yeah, look, obviously supporting Cork, you're going to say Cork win. I think they can win. I must say though, I am concerned kind of going into it with the Clare forward line. It's that movement off the ball and them playing that extra pass is the one thing that kind of that worries me. I think if we can curb the influence of John Conlon and him sitting in the pocket intercepting balls kind of going in, I think that's a huge it's a huge bonus if we can get Shane Barrett on the ball and moving on the wings. I really do think that John's influence in the Clare team, and I think he gives great kind of confidence to the Clare setup when he is playing well as well too, because he's such a leader in that group. I really think it's going to be a close game. I think if it's a dry day up in Croke Park, it is going to be high scoring. I think it'll suit both teams, and there was 2 points in it in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Cork were probably lucky to be within 2 points that day. So I'm hoping for a Cork win. I think if they play to their if they play to their potential, I think they will win. But that Clare forward line does make me very, very nervous, and their ability to get goals.
Simon, I know you're a passionate Cork man. I know you're tipping Cork. What's the underlying reason? Same question to you.
You know, Mark, I was chatting to a friend the other day, and we were going through all of this, and I was making myself more nervous, like the Kieran saying they're thinking about the Clare forwards. But I think Cork are going to win, and I'll tell you why I think they're going to win. I think Cork are going to play the game on their own terms. I don't know, is it arrogance? What is it? Or you'd see Corkness, mentioned here and there. I think Cork are going to play in their own terms. Whereas I think Clare are going to give up a bit of their own kind of, I suppose, tactics and so on, trying to stop Cork. So I think it's almost as if Clare could walk into Cork's hands in a way. I think Clare will give up a bit of what's good about Clare by trying to prevent Cork going to town on them altogether. I can see the Cork half-back line. I don't know if you could get a price in Cork half-back line getting over or under 5.5 points. I can see that becoming an issue in the game for Clare. That when they're clearing ball, I think they're going to have to suffocate things in the back, and that's going to create space out in the middle of the field. I can see that Cork half-back line picking off scores. So I'm actually a bit bullish now at this stage. I think Cork are going to win, and I think they're going to win 6 or 7 points. Sweat-free, I might go away for points with 5 minutes to go.
Jesus, there's confidence
that's
for
very,
you there.
That's very un-Cork-like, though.
Yeah, Rory, get you in there. I suppose being the passionate Clare fan you're tipping Clare, but again, same question to you.
I'm torn here now because I tipped Kilkenny the last day and Clare won. So
you did.
I'm wondering.
On record. Yeah.
I'll give you a good bet, lads. If you fancy a flutter, Shane O'Donnell score another hat-trick against Cork in that Ireland final. It'd be a lovely bring a lovely kind of roundness to his career in one way. To start off, he's first All Ireland with a hat-trick, and then second time he appears. Because I actually think it's possible that if he's in there, he could get 3 goals inside if he gets the right ball, and Clare can expose Downey inside. Because as I pointed out, like Gillan caused rack the last day, won every ball that came in, and O'Donnell is like that in terms of ball sticks to him when he goes in there. And I just see with his finishing that he might get a couple of goals in there. Now, saying that, Lohan could play him in the half-forward line and he could be there for the whole game. So we just don't know. Trying to put a prediction or anything, but I think it would be a nice one. Shane O'Donnell, 3 goals. But anyway, look, if I was looking at it objectively, you'd have to say that Cork got in there in the better form. Clare haven't played a full game to the level that Cork did against Limerick in the semi-final. Have Clare the ability to beat Cork? Absolutely. Can we cut open that back line? We have before, so we can do it again. As I said, we're coming up against 14 of the team we beat down in their own pitch, so you can be bullish that way from a Clare point of view. But we'll have to come up with a performance we have yet to produce this year. And if Cork can repeat the performance against Limerick, that might be good enough for Cork. Yeah, objectively, you'd have to go with Cork just about. But yeah, finals are funny. I think we haven't had a big performance for full game this year, and it'd be a perfect time to do it. It'd be the final. So yeah, okay, I'm going to rip up the whole possibly jinx and Clare, and I'm just going to go with Clare by 2 points. And again, I heard it here, Shane O'Donnell man of the match, 3 goals.
Very good. Kieran Collins, you're probably the only balanced observer here. Who are you tipping to win Lee McCarthy on Sunday at 5 o'clock?
I think looking at Cork, first of all, they are the team in form, but 100%. Like they're on a high, basically. And I suppose the one downside to that high is getting caught up in it. And I know like the players and the whole group are probably being, kept away from social media and kept away from all that hype, but it still gets into players' minds. And that would be the only worry I'd have from a Cork point of view is getting caught up in the whole storm of it. Look, they're there on merit. They've beat the All Ireland champions twice in the year to get there. They've been exceptional. A bad start to the year, but they have been building game on game. They've unlocked a couple of, I suppose, things that were holding them back maybe in the last year or two, and I think they've got the puzzle a little bit better now, and what they're doing is working for them. I think they're really strong at puckouts. I think they have the players in repetitions, and they have a bench as well, which we haven't mentioned, is players that they can call on and rely on to make a difference, make an impact, like Shane Kingston, Robbie O'Flynn. At the backs, I suppose Cahalane, is experienced. who else? There's you look at Clare, I suppose, and okay, if Taylor doesn't start, okay, Taylor is an impact. But outside of that, you've Aaron Channer, who hasn't set the world alight for Clare ever. Shane Meehan the same. They're kind of untested, really. And if it does come down and it is a battle and it goes to the wire, that bench is going to be huge for Cork. I personally, I think Cork are going to win it. I think they're just a farm team. Clare, for me, I've had question marks all year over them. Just defensively, I suppose. Look, they have, I think, regressed on last year. They haven't put 70 minutes together. The form of the semi-final, that first half, like that's worrying. Going up against a team where like they're just going to run at you, and run at you time after time, at pace. And Kilkenny showed in that first half they ran at Clare, and I think Conor Lean, while he has had a good year, he was caught off the hop. Was a Mikey Carey ran through. Like little moments like that where you switch off. It's an All Ireland final. You can't switch off. And like, as I said earlier, look, if Clare do bring that 70 minutes, the SDR are threatened and will be thereabouts. But I'm yet to be convinced by Clare this year, and I think for me the All Ireland is going back down the side, which after 19 years, it's well deserved.
No, it's going to be a fantastic day, guys, on Sunday. Another note for Johnny Murphy as well. Big day for him and Ballyanders and Limerick, officiating the contest as well. Let's hope the game flows. There's no real contentious decisions. That there's two teams just basically going at it from minute one. So, look, an awful lot to be excited for. I think if it's anything like 2013, guys, I think we're in for an absolute treat. So, not going to call it. But we'll leave it there, guys. Many thanks tonight for your time. Thanks to Ruairi and Kieran, as always, for your insight. Also to Simon Stokes has come on, and also special guest tonight, Kieran Murphy. Lads, many thanks. Great episode tonight, and enjoy the game over the weekend.
Thanks, Mark.
Cheers, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.